23, I lost the woman who gave me life. My name is Amarachi, and everything that followed my mother's death still feels like a film. I watched from behind a cotton screen, close enough to feel the blows, but powerless to stop them. We buried Mom on a Wednesday, and the sky cried with us. Her friends from the Enugu Women's Market Association cried louder than any siren. My uncle AJ, who had been living abroad for 8 years, flew in just for the funeral. It was that kind of burial. Mama was that kind of woman, respected, feared, and envied. I stood there like a statue next to my stepmother, Madame Patricia, who cried without tears. Her daughter, Yeka, stood behind her, red lipstick smudged across her chin like blood. My mother owned 2 shops at Oman Market, a large bungalow at Independence Layout, and a fixed deposit that Mama once whispered would be enough to cover your first business, marriage, and any dream you have. And just like that, the woman who protected me was gone. 2 weeks after the burial, the lawyer, Mr. Obara, arrived to read Mama's will. He was elderly, with shaky hands and gray brows that danced whenever he looked at me. We gathered in the living room, my father, my stepmother, her daughter Guinea, and me. I felt like a chicken surrounded by foxes. By the power vested in me as the legal representative of the late Mama Kichi, I will now read her final statement. He unfolded the brown envelope. To my only daughter, Amarachi, I leave my entire savings account with a fixed deposit of 7 million naira, the house at number 11 Oko Crescent, and 2 plots of land in Transulu. Enugu, she is the sole beneficiary. I ask that no one contest this decision, for I am of sound mind, and I know what I am doing. Signed. A sharp silence followed. My father coughed. Madame Patricia blinked slowly and crossed her arms. Guinea let out a mocking laugh. Is that all? My stepmother asked with a smile that could slice yam. Yes, ma'am. This is the full content of the will, the lawyer replied. She looked at me as though I had stolen the breath out of her chest. I stood to leave, tears in my eyes, but something told me that peace wouldn't last. I should have listened to that voice. 3 months later, I was preparing to move into Mama's house at Independence Layout. I had the property documents and was still staying in the family bungalow in Abapa, trying to process the grief. Patricia had become unnervingly nice, bringing me food, ironing my clothes, and calling me my dear every sentence. Even Guinea, who once called me an orphan, was suddenly offering to help me pack. I knew something was wrong, but I didn't expect it to be this wrong. Around 10 p.m. one rainy night, I heard the front door bang. Guinea rushed in, drenched and sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't see him. I swear, she shouted. My father came out of the bedroom. What's going on? He asked. I didn't see the Okada, he just appeared. I hit him. He was breathing, but now he's not moving. Where? Patricia asked. Near Addison Junction, close to ShopRite. The room went silent. Guinea dropped her keys. Mommy, help me. I don't want to go to prison. Patricia stared at her daughter, then turned slowly to look at me with an evil smile that I would never forget. Go and shower. Leave this to me. That night, while I was sleeping, I felt a hand cover my mouth. I jumped. Shh, Patricia whispered. Get up, come with me. Don't make a sound. I followed her barefoot into the kitchen. The rain had stopped, and she looked like someone possessed under the fluorescent light. She closed the door behind us and leaned in. You take the fall for Guinea. What? I whispered, heart racing. You heard me, she said. You confess to the police. Say you were the one driving. Say it was an accident. I won't do that, I whispered. She laughed. Do you think your mother's money makes you untouchable? Think again. What about the CCTV around Atissan? Already handled. What about the car? The registration is in Guinea's name. She stepped closer. Amarachi, you will do this, or I'll make it look like you planned the murder. I'll say you were drunk. I'll make sure everything points to you. I took a step back, trembling. Why are you doing this? Her eyes narrowed. Because you're not her blood. You're just a guest in this family, and your mother made you too comfortable. 2 days later, I was arrested. The police came for me with a warrant claiming I had turned myself in. They said they had a voice recording of me confessing, but my phone was nowhere to be found. They took me to the station and I kept screaming, it wasn't me. But when the footage from the scene was shown, it had been doctored. The face behind the wheel was mine, but the license plate had been tampered with. They said Patricia had used one of her contacts. I spent that night in a cold cell, wondering how my life had flipped so quickly. What I didn't know was that this was just the beginning. The next morning, a strange woman entered the police station, carrying an envelope addressed to me and a USB stick with footage that no one expected. Her name was Madame Teresa, and her visit was the first crack in Patricia's web of lies. She handed the USB to the DPO. The video showed Guinea driving alone, calm and unbothered after hitting the Okada man. She didn't slow down, pulled over 2 streets away, looked at the damage and laughed. The video ended with her walking off, phone in hand. The DPO was stunned. Madame Teresa explained she had witnessed it all. She also mentioned that my mother had once helped her family and that she couldn't ignore this. I was then given evidence, proving my innocence, a voice, recording of my father conspiring to forge a will and steal my inheritance. I rushed back to my lawyer with the USB and it changed everything. 3 weeks later, I stood in court. The prosecutor now looked nervous. My lawyer presented the new footage. The judge was shocked and Guinea's true involvement was exposed. The judge immediately ordered my release and called for further investigation into Guinea's actions. Patricia and Guinea went into hiding, and the court issued a warrant for their arrest. When I returned home, Patricia stood in the doorway with a scowl on her face. "You think you've won?" she spat. I replied calmly, "I just told the truth." That night I woke to find that my documents, the will, my ID property papers had disappeared. Patricia and Guinea were gone. I found a note on the kitchen table that read, "Blood is thicker than anything else. We are going where you can't find us. Consider this your punishment for being greedy." For 2 days I walked around like a shadow of myself. It wasn't just about the money. It was the betrayal. How do you process the fact that your own father stood by while his wife sent you to prison for a crime you didn't commit? Worse still, he signed over my future. I found out that Guinea had been listed as the new owner of my mother's properties through a forged will. My father had been complicit and I was left with nothing. But my mother had planned for this. Hidden behind her dressing mirror, I found an envelope with a voice recording of my father agreeing to forge a will. We used this evidence in court, and the judge ruled in my favor. Patricia and Guinea were sentenced. Patricia to 10 years for conspiracy and forgery, and Guinea to 6 months of community service for her role in the forgery. I moved back into my mother's house, and as I went through her things, I found a title deed for a small shopping plaza that she had bought for me to start my own business. A note beside it read, "Don't just inherit, build. That is where true power lies." The story reminds us that betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from family. Greed will always expose itself, and a mother's wisdom endures even after death. Justice may be delayed, but it never forgets. And the truth, though hidden, can never die.